Everyone, as you saw from that title, something is off. Everything I've done so far hasn't really hit the vision point of what I was trying to achieve with this car, and that's mainly to do with the suspension. Let me show you. So one of the big things about this car is that it's a project car. It'll get tracked once in a while, but it's not going to be its main duty. I've got the GT3 RS for it. So I wanted to slam this car, give it that sort of ultra tuned look. If you've seen the previous videos, you'll know that I dropped this thing on KW Haas, and I had a vision in my head that it was going to be super low, but it didn't turn out that way. It's been about 10 days since the car was lowered, and it's supposed to settle, but it hasn't settled as much as I would like it to. It's lowered on KW height adjustable springs. It's on stock wheels, no spacers, nothing. So my plan is to try and put some spacers on to see if it'll kind of visually address this big gapping that's there. I would have thought it would have dropped another inch, maybe another half inch, but it hasn't. So, I mean, off the 10 days since the springs have been installed, I've maybe driven 4 days of it. Busy week and all that. So I got these Haas kit from Supreme Power. Eric over there really takes care of me when I need something. He sends it over, helps me out with pricing or whatever that might be. And he sent over this sort of spacer kit with the bolts and spacers in the hopes that we will address this sort of visually open gap. Thinking is if you push it out further enough, you see more of the tire will stick out more, it'll close that gap. Same thing with the front and the back as well. So the spacers we're using are 18 millimeters and 15 millimeters. So we're gonna go 18s at the back and 15s up front. Now this spec for 18 and 15 mil was recommended by those guys at PSI. I watched a bunch of their videos. They were one of the first few to lower and mod a G87 M2. So I'm gonna take that recommendation and see how it goes. Now this is a short-term solution. I've got wheels coming, and when those wheels arrive, it'll replace all of this. Stock wheels are gone, spacers are gone, and if it doesn't sit low, or it doesn't look low enough, or it doesn't kind of eliminate that gapping that's existing here, then I think we might have to go a different route. So on that, what I did is reached out to KW as well. I reached out to, I think it was John at KW, to ask him about these springs and say, hey, is there anything that they can do to help me lower this car even more? So instead of saying no, what they did was they sent out a form, a tech sheet for me to fill out, where I'll measure certain measurements on the suspension and the ride height as it is today, to see if they can recommend something else. Thinking they might have lower springs that may be going another inch, and that will really help with the situation. So let's get to business, take these wheels off, measure the suspension layout, ride height, etc., and see how the spacers look first. As you can see, the rears are slammed. There's not much for it to go. And these are the fronts. So the front rights are pretty much slammed all the way. Nowhere else to go. Yep, new springs required. So we're gonna do these 18 millimeter spacers to the back. We've got bolts long enough, so about 48 millimeters for the back as well. These are hub centric as well, so very, very high quality it feels like as well. Really nice. So let's see. And for the fronts, we're going to put in these 15 millimeter spacers with, what are they, 45 millimeter bolts. All right. right, the one side is done. Now we got to do the other side before it starts to rain. So let's get to it. We're going to do the other side, head out for a drive. Spacers installed. The gap, not quite impressed by how low it is still. But overall spacing, it's nice and aggressive. Very close to flush. I think when I get the wheels, it'll be about this offset as well. So once again, 18 millimeters out back and 15 millimeters up front. Doesn't look bad at all. It kind of closed it up some more. It could probably drop maybe a ½ inch or a ¼ inch maybe. Let's go for a drive and see if it rubs. That's going to be the test. All right, let's take this for a drive and see how it does. So the biggest thing that we're trying to look for here is any kind of rubbing. See what it feels like as well. Driving too. Does it change the driving characteristics a little bit as well? We've pushed them out quite aggressively as well. I wouldn't track in this setup, but from an overall stance perspective, it gives us an indication of what wheels with the right offset will look like as well. So let's give it a go. Now the thinking here is, as you drive, it'll settle a little bit since it's been lifted, and we'll come back and see. We'll re-torque all the bolts, and then see if it reduces the gap any further. A few minutes around the block here, no rubbing. I did a full left turn, no rubbing. This is what they say about the inner fenders being addressed in the M2 compared to the M3 and the M4. What do you all think? Does it look better with the spacers or without the spacers? I think with this height, the spacers help quite a bit with the stock wheels. And we'll test it again once we have the aftermarket wheels as well. Yeah, no rubbing. I don't hear nothing. Pretty good, I'd say. So I think a good test will be me parking it back in the driveway, doing full lock to lock. See how that turns. Ah, I like that better. Drives well. So, what's the verdict? Spacers look great, but unfortunately it seems to be rubbing. As I was backing into my driveway here, or my garage bay, it started rubbing when I went all the way lock. It's a bit unfortunate. I guess it didn't really sort out the issue, so it seemed to rub a little bit. So up front, 15 might be a little too aggressive. So you might need to do like 12 mil. Again, in real world scenarios, right? Like you're backing into your driveway or in your garage, and you're locking it all the way. It will rub a little bit, nothing major. I was able to correct it and not go all the way lock and stop rubbing. So there you have it. That's 15 mil up front, 18 mil at the back. And I think I'm going to keep it like this for a while. While driving around in the city, it didn't rub at all. But just in this one scenario, backing into the driveway, that's when it started rubbing. All in all, I think I like the way it looks. It pushes it out a bit. It is what it is. I think in order for it to go lower, I either need springs that are lower by at least an inch, a ½ inch maybe, at least, or do coilovers. What do you all think? What do you think of the ride height? What do you think of the spacers? Does it look good to you with the stock wheels? Aftermarket wheels are going to come, and we'll see what happens then. But for the moment, stock wheels, spacers, KW, height adjustable springs, it is what it is. It's not as low as I'd like it to go. I wanted to go lower. I know people tell me that H&R springs go lower than the KW ones. Either way, like I mentioned before, I'm taking those tech measurements and sending it off to John at KW to see if they can provide me with maybe a lower spring that might go down 30 mil, about an inch or so. So we'll see if that comes to reality. Until then though, let's just enjoy the car, have fun. I hope you all enjoyed this one as well. If you did, subscribe to the channel, follow my journey with this BMW M2, and I'll see you all in the next one.